Hi everyone, this is Chris and Kim Fu from Spiffio. We just recently returned from the Rock RMS conference in Phoenix, Arizona, and it was a really incredible, eye-opening experience for the two of us. So we wanted to just have this conversation of debriefing on this public channel so that you guys can also learn about our experience. You want to start?
Sure, yeah, it's an awesome experience. This kind of a tech conference dedicated churches, right? So I get to hear from over 100 people that came to our booth, the kind of things that they needing for their church, and it's just mind blowing that to know that they have so many. Um, needs as far as serving the populations. And for them, the language diversity is essential. In the business world, um, it's called the mission critical. It's a must have. It's not a nice to have, it's a must have. So I'm so excited to hear all the different validations that give us that how important Spifio can be for their churches. So I look forward to following up with those leads, and hopefully that we can uh, bless them with the solutions that fits their needs.
Yeah, I was definitely surprised, I think, because coming from the Pacific Northwest, primarily, where translation for many churches is not a felt need. I was surprised to be in Arizona, where because the Hispanic population is so large, and we had, they had people from all over the country, from New York and California and elsewhere. There were a lot of churches that didn't need any kind of convincing that this was an important thing. Translation's already on their mind. It's already something they're trying to do, and they're looking for solutions that can help them make a sustainable translation ministry. I think we heard a lot of stories from different churches that had at one time a thriving ministry, but then someone who was leading that would leave the church, and then it would start to just kind of dissolve, and it would be really hard to sustain offering translated services. And so it was really cool to be able to present Spiffio as a solution that by using humans and AI, people don't need to speak Spanish, for example, to be able to provide translation into Spanish. By captioning the services in English and then generating the Spanish translation off of it, they could have a more sustainable translation ministry. And that was a really cool validation, I think, of one of the approaches that we've taken with building our product. The other one being we do support like live streaming audio for those who want to use interpreters so that it doesn't have to replace a translation ministry. But it was really cool to see that this seemed like it was something very promising that met a real need for the people who were at the conference.
Yeah, I totally agree. And just listening to the keynotes and the presentations, I feel like the pace of innovations, the energy that people brought into the conference. When I saw the during the keynote, it's just packed with people. Yes, it's not as big as the reInvent or AWS, right? But it is several hundred people, what, 500, 600 people, maybe packed in that conference room for the during the keynote, and then the number of classes that they offered, and the new features that they launched. It's a powerful event, and I can tell that the people that came, they're so eager. They like to create things that are useful for the church, and to me that is like very just very affirming and very energizing for me personally to go to that conference.
Yeah, I think as a builder myself, I felt like this is the first Christian conference that I've been to that felt like a tech conference. Although there's been a lot of,
Hmm.
theology of faith and technology conferences I've been part of in the past. This is actually the place where the builders are, and that's actually really fun. It comes with that kind of energy. The plenary keynote was like almost like an Apple presentation of like one more thing, and then they release a new feature,
Yeah.
Rock RMS on Apple TV, and it's really exciting to see the possibilities that are being pushed forward. Um, one other
Hmm.
interesting thing for me being at the conference was we were a vendor, we were a sponsor, and we were surrounded by these other companies that are also serving a similar kind of church market, you could say. And the number of vendors that I talked to or other sponsors I talked to that encountered the need for translation in their work with customers was really surprising. It may not be the bulk of their customers, but many people came to us talking about, hey, actually, we have customers who ask us for a solution, and so it's really great to hear about Spiffio because now we have something we can refer our customers to. That was really surprising for me because
Mhm.
for the longest time we felt like in our marketing it was really hard to get in front of the churches that have a need for
Partnership.
translation
Yeah.
already, right? But it sounds like maybe through these other
Mhm.
avenues, whether it's live streaming, giving, church management, and those kinds of things, then the need for translation pops up on the radar.
Yeah. And there's one, two experience that really touched my heart. During the keynote, I saw the deaf in the room and with two ASL interpreters, and he said, kind of like in the back row seats, right? And he was looking at the interpreters. So he missed it. He missed the opportunity to see the big screen, the all the presentations, right? The slides. And to me, that's a big miss, right? I wish that the captions are displayed on the big screen itself. So then that allows the deaf or the hard of hearings uh, to sit anywhere they want and they'll be able to read it. And of course, some people, I mean, especially the deaf, they would like to see ASL interpreters. So in that case, I think the interpreter should be probably on the stage, right? And allowing the people to see it. It is a big room. I mean, even the screen itself is makes on the keynote speakers like very tiny, I had the pictures and the snippets of the speech, and you can tell it's such a big room, such a big screen too. So that's one experience I feel like that's a missed opportunity. I wish that Spiffio could contribute to that moments where we allow the deaf to engage, to participate, right? And and so beyond the translation, the other thing is also this one church that came to us, and when they surveyed the members, there are over 90 languages spoken in that congregation. Again, it's just blow my mind. I told them that I thought that Spiffy was already like quite ahead, by telling them that we have 60 languages that we could support today. Now they're saying 90. I'm curious to see the list and where the gap is, and make sure that Spiffio we address that gap, and be able to address the needs that the church is looking for to fill.
That's incredible because it would be virtually impossible to create a ministry that would have volunteers for all 90 languages to interpret. But with Spiffio, they could basically get into all 90 off of just the English captions and support it every week, which, yeah, I'm really excited to follow up with them and see how we can help them to provide language accessibility for all those different language groups. I did find that, 90 is a mind-boggling number. And it's something that definitely changed my perception, not having grown up in mega churches, that these churches have 5, 10, 20,000 members. And that's like on the scale of like a college campus of people. It now makes
Mm,
sense why they talk about multi-site, multiple campuses, and everything like that. And at that scale, solutions like RockRMS or Spiffio, I think that that's where technology really shines because there's just no way that this scale can be served in a more high touch, human kind of human oriented solution. Even though the humans in the loop matters, even though
yeah.
relationships matter, that's really where technology shines. So that was pretty cool to just get a sense of the scale of the kinds of problems and things that people are dealing with, and to see that Spiffio can make a difference there. And it's just incredible that they could even create community, create belonging for 90 languages with what they're
Yeah.
already doing today. I think
Yeah.
that's really amazing.
To view it as a mission critical, that that is just amazing. you know it's not like nice to have, right? It's like, hey, this is critical to our church, um, to include them, right? So the sense of belonging will increase when you enable them to participate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been one of the biggest changes that we've made to our marketing. Spiffio, we used to talk about just translation and captions, and we used to talk about how it's for creating a foretaste of God's kingdom in the language diversity and the worship, which are all true things. But now we're starting to change how we talk about it to say Spiffio is for belonging, and we want to empower churches to create belonging across cultures, across language, across generations, with with our tools. So we're providing this all-in-one
Mm-hmm.
toolkit that churches can decide how they're going to best deploy for that purpose. And the reason why that's been helpful for me in talking about it is I think that, especially at this conference, I felt like it was validated. I think that in the past, talking to churches who don't see the need for translation, it just becomes, like you said, not mission critical. It's like a vitamin. It's nice to have. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really need it. But by talking about creating belonging, it's something that every church can relate to. It's something that's
Yeah.
critical to their community. And it also shows that when they don't have translation, they actually really do exclude people. It's not enough just to say, oh, everyone can speak English or something like that. There are people in their communities who have a need and still come because they get those relational benefits. They still want to belong. And through translation, through captioning, it's actually, we can empower them to do so much more.
Totally. And there's one, I think he came, well, he came with his two team members, I think. Anyway, they came to our booth, and then one guy told me like there are 17 campuses. Wow. Well, it took me a while to process that, right? 17 campuses. That's like, University of Washington. What total students is about 50,000 maybe. And they told me like that they have a membership is 50,000 members spread out across 17 campuses. That's almost the size of University of Washington. When you think about that, you put in that scale, you realize that, yeah, this is like really, it just makes it impossible without, software. And then they continue to include more and more people who don't speak English into their church. They're just going to continue to grow, right? And each campus, they have their own sets of data, the populations, what languages that are spoken in that particular location. So it's it's all driven by data. They're looking at the metrics, how to include these people. So like I said, it's just very energizing, not just inspiring, but also energizing, that knowing that churches are responding to which I believe uh, what God desires. God desires for the church to worship together, not separately. And my I just want to echo Dr. Martin Luther King when he said Sunday is the most segregated hour in America. It's sad, right? He said that in what, 1968 maybe, and still we are still more segregated. I mean, Sunday is most segregated hour in America. So I hope that through these conferences and through what we're doing at Spifio, we make it so easy for any church. Doesn't matter whether there's 17 campuses or only like church with members of 100 people. It doesn't matter, and they have the ability to offer this accessibility for the deaf, for the hard of hearings, and also with this language diversity based on the zip code. They can include those languages in the church every single Sunday with just one click away. That's what Spifio is. So I'm excited about the opportunity and the possibility.
Yeah, I think that there's one IT person from a church that I talked to at the conference who, we don't always talk about manuscript mode in Spifio, but as I started to mention it, he's like, oh, we manuscript. His church has like multiple campuses and they have a teleprompter and their pastor
Mhm.
preaches from that. And I was just like, man, you guys can start offering like, 20 languages on your services as of like this coming Sunday, because
Right.
it's those manuscript capabilities. It's that easy and it's going to be really really nice for everyone because it's going to be a fantastic experience. And so that was also eye-opening to me. Sometimes it seems like most churches don't manuscript, but for the ones that do, I really hope that things like this conference gets the word out that when you manuscript, there's really no reason not to use Spiffio because it's going to go so smoothly and the translation will be so effective
Accurate.
that
Mm,
you can already start advertising like immediately as of like next Sunday that you're going to have worship services that have translation at least into all these languages, which lets you then focus on the harder work of how can you incorporate more of those languages in the service down the line and include people from these language communities in what you do. But just that starting point of accessibility, because you get captions for the deaf and hard of hearing, and then you get translation with it, it's almost a no-brainer. And
yeah.
so I really appreciate being able to go to this conference because it created awareness, I think, Sometimes you mentioned about what Martin Luther King said, and many people in the church talk about, the way that it's segregated and divided, and it shouldn't be that way. And what I loved about going to this more tech side is that this is a place where we can explore solutions. The solutions aren't
Right.
just more teaching, they aren't just more words. There's actually technology, there's actually innovation that lets
Mm-hmm.
churches do something about it. And by adding translation, it really does change what's possible. But sometimes I think people don't get to see that firsthand.
Right.
And so when we can demo it, like we got to do a demo at our booth of both the manuscript mode and the speech translation, live speech translation, and people could see it on the TV and be like, okay, so when I talk and I see the translation there, and you can get it on your phone in the audience view, they started to get an imagination for what they could do differently. And I'm hoping that we can, I know we did the demo for the conference, but I'm hoping we can do a great video or something that can communicate this online on our website, just to be a really effective way to share the vision, at least, of what's possible with the people who I think genuinely care, but for the longest time
Absolutely.
haven't had a tool that lets them actually address it. And so all
Yeah.
that we end up reverting to is more workshops, more training, more teaching, because that's what pastors and churches know, when actually a technology in this case can really transform what's possible.
And they can start right away, right? They could start right away. If they want to be multilingual, they pick English and Spanish as a pilot, and pilot can start anytime. They don't have to wait a long time until they get the ministry set up, and all it takes is one leader, one person's having the desire to deliver it, and it's done. And I'm excited that uh, I mean, the two people that came by. One is our own customers that I was so surprised. The CTK Bellingham.
Christ the
Oh,
King.
you're from CTK? Yeah, I didn't realize that they Christ the Church, Christ the King, right?
Yeah.
The CTK stands for Christ the King in Bellingham.
Yep.
So they actually send people to this conference because the church is using the platform, the Rock RMS, and at the same time they're using Spifio. No wonder they have a lot of questions about integration and all that. I'm glad that they had successfully launched, they had successfully piloted. They bought a bunch of Kindle tablets for the elderly. They realized that the elderly who lost their hearings, um, um, the hearing aids are not compatible with the loudspeakers. So having
Mm.
captions on the tablets and make the fonts bigger, it's address the accessibility need immediately for the elderly.
Great.
So I'm glad that they're able to roll this out, and so I'm hoping that they're actually going to produce video for, to demonstrate the accessibility and the multilingual aspect of Spifio and how it benefits the church overall. They're planning to add more and more languages to
Mm.
reflect the diversity in the city of Bellingham. So I'm excited about that too.
And I think Christ the King, they also, during the pandemic, they produced a multilingual, or not a multilingual, just like a video of all their members singing this one song together. And then I talked about Project Pentecost and the multilingual video. So they were encouraging me, like, dude, you got to do this. You got to make the multilingual version, that includes all the 9 languages that we have translations of that song into. And I think that there's another element that I saw that, again, we don't always lead with that. We don't always market it, but the beauty of it, the art, the worship, the connection, when you can highlight all those languages together, singing the "We Are the Body of Christ" song that's been translated to 9 different languages and stuff. I think it helps. It's another thing that we can bring to churches, that can help to cast the vision of what they're seeking to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe we can partner with CTK to produce something like that,
Hmm.
according to whatever language diversity they have in their congregation. But yeah, the last bit that I think I would mention is I really appreciated John Edmiston, who's the
Oh,
founder of
yeah.
RockRMS. He took some time to just chat with me in depth to see what are the possible opportunities for Spiffio to integrate with the platform. It's an open source platform for relationship management for churches. And that open source nature makes it a little bit like WordPress for churches, in the sense that many, many major churches are funding development of new features for it. And then small churches can benefit from that as well. And so it's a very interesting ecosystem that they've created around this, a very interesting community that they've created around this. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I learned from talking to him was there's a few opportunities for translation and stuff in the product, but it seemed like the highest priority one would be to integrate with the media library, the media element capabilities of RockRMS, where anytime a church uploads a new media asset, maybe it could synchronize with Spiffio to get an automatic translation or get a human translation of it,
Mm,
or captioning as well. So now
mhm.
that we're starting to offer human-based, captioning services or translation in addition to the AI-based tools, if we could build an API, he told me that they could probably integrate with that. And then every one of the churches who uses RockRMS could, with one click or something, have a plugin, something like that, so that anytime they create a new teaching video, a new content, a new sermon,
Yeah,
they can also get translation with it and then have that embedded on their website. And it can really further, I think, the vision of every church accessible in any language in terms of its online presence, and by doing that. So that's one
that
of the
is
big
a game
technical
changer.
takeaways for me
Yeah.
out of this conference. There's so many, as you know, product wise, there's so many priorities and it's overwhelming sometimes. But it was really helpful to talk to him because I think that we narrowed it down. That would be the
Mhm.
the best use of our effort in the short term to
Yeah,
really advance this partnership.
totally. I still remember that during I think it was the last night when we had dinner, together with a bunch of people, and then one engineer immediately send us a follow-up email after that dinner that he wanted to use Spiffio, he wanted to test Spiffio for his church. So that's the kind of like interest, and you can feel it that uh, they have these huge needs and
Yeah.
they're looking for solution that they can roll out right away. So I'm excited about that too.
I think this is already a pretty good recap of what we learned. And one last thing that I learned was just it's a different mindset. Many of these churches are growing. They invest in technology and innovation, and it's helping me to see that as much as we seek to make Spiffio's price point accessible for the majority of churches, however big or small they are, in order to
Hmm.
make this really sustainable, we need to think about it from the perspective of effectiveness. And what does it take to really make an amazing multilingual experience that people can that creates belonging for people in these churches. And so that was another big feedback and takeaway that I learned, that just talking to John, talking to the others there, it's possible to create this ecosystem to serve the church. And in terms of pricing and everything like that, there needs to be a sustainable price where the
Yeah.
business can continue to exist and support these ministries. So I know that's specifically tailored to us with Spiffio and how we've sought to do our pricing, but it was very encouraging to hear that and to think through what that means for the future of how we present Spiffio not as a point solution of just translation, but really as a platform for belonging. So that's something I'm going to continue to explore, and hopefully, what we can do is deliver even greater quality and greater value for the churches that use Spiffio.